Feel the cool, damp stone floor press against the soles of your bare feet. The air is thick, almost suffocating, saturated with the heavy perfume of burning myrrh, wet river mud, and the sharp, animal tang of fear sweat from hundreds of bodies pressed too close together. Torchlight from tall bronze braziers leaps and spits, throwing wild, jagged shadows that stretch impossibly long across the towering columns, twisting and writhing like living creatures trying to escape the light. You hear the relentless, hypnotic drip, drip, drip of the water clock in the shadowed corner, each drop falling with deliberate, cruel precision, marking time that feels heavier with every passing second. A low, guttural chant begins among the priests in spotless white linen robes, their shaved heads shining like polished marble in the firelight. The chant is perfectly timed. Every syllable lands exactly on the beat of the dripping water, creating a rhythm that sinks into your chest, matching your heartbeat whether you want it to or not. Outside the temple walls, the Nile whispers in the darkness, its slow, endless current sounding like the breathing of something ancient and alive. The pharaoh stands motionless on the raised platform, golden robes catching the firelight, his eyes fixed on the stars above as though he is reading a message written only for him. He lifts one hand, slowly, deliberately. The chant dies instantly. The entire temple, thousands of people, falls into absolute, breathless silence. In that single, perfectly timed instant, you feel it in your bones. This man does not merely rule the land, the river, or the people. He rules time itself. And he is using it against you. This is not myth. This is not legend. This is how ancient empires turned time into the most powerful, invisible weapon ever forged, controlling not just what people did, but when they did it, how they felt about it, and whether they dared to question it at all. Welcome to Mind Origin. Today we descend into one of history's hidden and ruthless truths, how ancient empires used time itself as a weapon. We will walk through three mighty civilizations that mastered this dark art with terrifying precision: ancient Egypt, the Roman Empire, and the Maya. Each one used time not just to measure life, but to own it, to shape it, to crush resistance with nothing more than the ticking of a clock or the rising of a river. The countdown begins. The clock is already running. Ancient Egypt, the Nile's eternal clock, time as divine control. In the land where the Nile flowed like the lifeblood of the gods, time was never something you simply measured with numbers or seasons. It was something you worshipped, something you feared, something you obeyed without question. The Egyptians turned the river's annual flood into the single most powerful weapon of mass control ever created in human history. Every single year, without fail, the Nile would rise from its banks and flood the land, depositing rich black silt that made the desert bloom. If the flood came at the right time and reached the perfect height, Egypt ate well, cities grew, temples rose. If it came too late, too weak, or not at all, famines swept the land, people starved, riots brewed, and entire regions could collapse. The pharaoh and his priests claimed they could predict and therefore control this life or death cycle. They used this power to make every single person in Egypt believe that their survival, their family's survival, their entire world's survival depended entirely on the ruler's divine connection to the gods. The key instrument of this control was the Nilometer, deep, narrow stone wells built at strategic points along the river's banks. Priests descended into these dark, damp shafts and measured the rising water level in secret. Then, weeks or even months before the flood arrived, they would stand on the steps of the great temples and announce to the gathered masses with absolute certainty, "The gods have spoken through the pharaoh. The sacred inundation will arrive in exactly 42 days and bring life to the two lands." Farmers planted their crops exactly when the priests commanded. Taxes were collected the moment the flood receded and the fields became accessible again. Festivals were held on dates the priests declared auspicious. Even wars were timed so that the army marched when the Nile was low and the fields could be left unattended. Everything, birth, marriage, death, planting, harvesting, tribute, rebellion, was locked to the pharaoh's calendar. Now, live the myth as it unfolds in real time, moment by perfectly timed moment. The sun is setting over the Nile, painting the water blood red and turning the sky into a furnace of orange and purple. The great temple at Karnak is packed shoulder to shoulder with thousands of people, farmers with calloused hands, mothers clutching children, merchants clutching amulets, all waiting in tense silence. The chant chants in perfect rhythm with the dripping water clock hidden in the inner sanctum. The pharaoh, Ramses II, the Great, stands motionless on the high platform, golden robes catching the dying light, eyes fixed on the stars as though he is reading a message written only for him. The chant stops, silence falls like a blade. The pharaoh slowly raises both arms to the sky and speaks with the voice of a god. "The gods have heard my prayers. The Nile will rise in exactly 42 days and bring life to the two lands." A collective gasp ripples through the crowd. When the flood arrives exactly on time, exactly as predicted, the people fall to their knees, weeping with relief, throwing grain and flowers at the temple steps. They believe with every fiber of their being that the pharaoh controls the river itself. They obey without question, paying taxes, building temples, fighting wars, living and dying exactly when he commands. Psychologically, this system was devastatingly brilliant. It exploited the deepest, most primal human fear of chaos and starvation. In a world where one bad flood could mean death for thousands of families, the pharaoh gave people the powerful illusion of control. They felt safe, not because the world was safe, but because they believed he spoke directly to the gods who controlled the world. This satisfied the human craving for order and predictability in an unpredictable, often cruel environment. It also created profound learned helplessness. The people stopped questioning the ruler because they were conditioned to believe their very survival depended on his timing and his divine favor. A lesser-known detail that adds deep intrigue: the priests had secret underground tunnels and hidden channels connected to every major Nilometer along the river. At night, under cover of darkness, they could secretly adjust the water level readings by diverting small streams or releasing stored water, making the pharaoh's predictions seem even more accurate and miraculous than nature alone allowed. This hidden engineering trick, a form of ancient time-faking, kept the illusion perfect for over 3,000 years, across dozens of dynasties. The Roman Empire. Time as imperial control. The calendar as a political weapon. In the marble halls of Rome, where legions marched in perfect step and emperors spoke from golden thrones, time became a political weapon more powerful than any sword or legion. Julius Caesar, and later his adopted son Augustus, completely rewrote the calendar in 45 BCE. They created the Julian calendar, the foundation of the calendar we still use today, supposedly to fix the chaotic, out-of-sync old Roman lunar calendar. But the real, hidden purpose was absolute, unbreakable control. Caesar declared himself Pontifex Maximus, Supreme High Priest of Rome, which gave him sole authority over the calendar. He decided when religious festivals happened, when taxes were due, when elections were held, when consuls took office, and even how long the year itself would last. He added entire extra months to realign the seasons, then added even more days so his own birthday celebrations could last longer and give him more time to consolidate power. Augustus continued this tradition, naming the month of August after himself and stealing a day from February to make his month as long as Julius's July. The calendar became a living propaganda tool. Every festival, every tax deadline, every public holiday reminded the people who truly owned their time. The myth unfolds like this in real time. Caesar stands in the Senate House, the old priests and senators arguing loudly about the broken, drifting calendar. He raises one hand. Silence falls instantly. With the voice of absolute authority, he declares, "From this day forward, time belongs to Rome." He announces the addition of 10 extra days, then 2 more. The people cheer in the streets. Festivals are held in his honor for weeks. Taxes are collected on dates he personally chooses. The legions march to war when he says, "Time itself now serves the emperor." Every sunrise and sunset becomes a reminder of his power. Psychologically, this was devastatingly effective. After decades of civil war, chaos, and shifting calendars, people craved stability and predictability. Caesar and Augustus gave them that, but at the price of total dependence. The calendar became a psychological anchor. People felt safe because life now followed a fixed imperial rhythm. It satisfied the deep human desire for order while quietly reinforcing the emperor's total, inescapable control over every aspect of daily existence. A lesser-known detail that adds intrigue: Augustus secretly used the calendar as a political weapon in subtle ways. He would deliberately adjust the length of certain months or delay the start of election seasons so his political opponents had less time to campaign or organize. This time manipulation was hidden in plain sight, disguised as religious or astronomical corrections, but it gave him an unfair advantage that helped cement his dynasty for generations. The Maya civilization, time as apocalypse weapon, fear of the end of everything. Deep in the emerald jungles of Mesoamerica, where pyramids rose like stone gods above the canopy, the Maya turned time into the ultimate weapon of fear, obedience, and absolute control. Their long count calendar was one of the most precise timekeeping systems ever created, tracking massive cycles of thousands of years and predicting exact dates when cosmic cycles would end and the world could be destroyed. Kings and priests weaponized these dates. They would stand on pyramid tops and declare to the terrified people below, "The gods demand more sacrifices, more tribute, more obedience, or the cycle will end and the world will be swallowed by darkness forever." The most famous date was December 21st, 2012, the end of the 13th Bakhtin cycle. But the Maya used hundreds of smaller cycle endings throughout their history to demand more labor, more blood, more loyalty, more everything. Every time a cycle approached its end, fear swept the cities. People gave everything they had to the temples to renew time and save the world. The myth plays out like this in vivid, terrifying detail. The king stands on the highest pyramid at Tikal, torchlight reflecting off his jade mask. The priests read the ancient calendar stones by firelight, their voices trembling. "The cycle ends in 42 days, they announce to the silent, terrified crowd below. Panic spreads like wildfire through the city. Mothers clutch their children. Warriors look at their weapons with dread. The king steps forward and speaks with divine authority. "Bring more jade, more blood, more obedience to the gods. Only then will they renew time and save us all from the darkness." The people obey instantly. They sacrifice, they build, they give everything. The cycle ends and is renewed. The king grows richer, more powerful, more divine. Psychologically, this was a masterpiece of control. It used the deepest, most primal human fear of all, the fear of the end of the world, to force total obedience. People gave up their wealth, their children, their lives to avoid the apocalypse. It perfectly satisfied the human desire for survival and meaning in time, the desperate need to believe that if we just follow the rules, the world will keep going. A lesser-known detail that adds deep intrigue: Maya priests had secret time rooms hidden inside the pyramids. These chambers contained mirrors, water bowls, and obsidian screens used to create optical illusions of future events, making people believe the end of the cycle was literally visible. This hidden technology, part astronomy, part theater, kept the fear alive and the people obedient for centuries. Conclusion. As the last echo of these ancient clocks fades into silence, one truth remains carved in stone. Time was never neutral. It was never innocent. It was always a weapon. The most powerful, the most invisible, the most inescapable weapon ever used against the human spirit. Whether through the sacred timing of the Nile's flood, the political precision of Rome's calendar, or the apocalyptic dread of the Maya's long count, these empires proved a simple, terrifying fact. Whoever controls time controls everything. The real question we must face today is quiet but urgent. Who or what controls time in our world right now? Which empire's time weapon surprised you the most? Which technique feels most familiar in our modern lives? Tell me in the comments below. If this journey through time moved you, shook you, or opened your eyes even a little, hit that like button and subscribe to Mind Origin. New hidden histories, new dark truths drop every week. Until the next chapter, watch the clock. It's always watching you.